Christmas afternoon, with the sun beaming through the windows, he stood in Laporte's impressive office and the impressive house in Lake Charles. Fueled with anger, resentment, he'd driven straight through. He hadn't slept in 36 hours. Rather than fatigued, he felt wired. You surprised me. I hadn't expected to see you so soon. And on Christmas Day, another hour or so, you wouldn't have found me at home. Say nothing. Booth set the backpack on the big mahogany desk next to an antique inkwell. He'd remember this room, he thought, and everything in it. The Georgia O'Keeffe over the fireplace, the bookcase behind the desk full of treasures rather than books, the jade horse, the Ming vase, the Dame peacock, all the treasures, because one day, maybe one day. But for now, he took the statue from his pack, set it down. Ah, and there it is. Booth saw it, the greed, the satisfaction of possession. As Laporte trailed a finger over the bronze face, down the body. She's lovely, isn't she? Strong, sexual, almost fierce. A woman, I think, who knows the needs of men, and meets them when she chooses. He walked to a 10-sided glass cabinet, a Victorian vitrine Booth remembered from his study of antiques, and took out a decanter. A drink to commemorate the moment? No. Booth took out a paper, set it down beside the statue. Wire the money there. Your manners don't improve. It's business. You got what you wanted. And you didn't need me for the job. You didn't have to upend my life for this job. I disagree. Laporte poured the bourbon into a short crystal glass, and, I believe, in the end, have done you a great favor. Your skills continue to impress, and I am pleased to have such a well-oiled tool in my exclusive toolbox. He toasted Booth, sipped. I will, of course, need to have the bronze authenticated before you collect your fee. As I am engaged this evening, and you weren't expected, I'll arrange for that tomorrow. Then wire the money tomorrow. Booth turned to leave. So trusting. I might keep the bronze and your fee. You won't. I know where you live. I could say the same, but not to worry. You'll have your fee. I always pay my debts. He toasted again. Until the next time. And Merry Christmas. Just wire the money. When Sebastian returned home after midnight from a long, raucous Christmas at his mother's, he found Booth's car in front of the cottage, and Booth asleep on his couch. You break into my house? Booth awoke to find the dog staring holes through him, and Sebastian standing with a wide grin and 2 loaded paper bags. Sorry, I needed to sleep. How come you don't tell me you're coming? I wasn't sure about it. When Booth sat up, rubbed his hands over his face, then just left his face in them, Sebastian's grin faded. You got trouble all over you. Did you have a job go bad? No, nothing like that. But you need to eat. I got enough food from the family table to fill the whole damn bayou. You come and sit. I'm gonna fix you up. Thanks. Sebastian started unloading the bags, and the scent of food hit Booth's empty stomach like a hammer. He took the plate Sebastian loaded with ham, fried chicken, biscuits. I'm gonna warm up the red beans and rice and some of these taters, and you tell me what you're eating in my kitchen instead of snuggled up with that girl you told me about, the red-headed girl. Booth just shook his head, but Sebastian didn't need words to see. Ah, sometimes love, it turns away from us. I did the turning. I had to. I had to make her hate me. Why? Laporte, Booth said, and told Sebastian everything. Screw him to hell and back up. I don't take the work up north. Not in many ways. This is true. But he has others. For him, you're like the statue. He wants to own you. Yeah, I got that. We're gonna figure this out. You go back to your college and your girl. You make things up with her. I can't. He'll use her, Mags, you, anyone I care about to get to me. And the next time he might not settle for busting up some furniture. What do you want to do? What you want, I'm with you. I picked up some prepaid phones. I'm sending one to Max and leaving one with you. I'll give you the number of mine. I've already ditched my other phone. It's probably overkill, but he's got a long reach. He can't use me if he can't find me. There's no point in hunting or hurting people if I care about if he can't find me. Where you gonna go? I'm going to drive to Atlanta, sell my car. It's time for that anyway. Change my name again and use some of his money to book a private plane. They don't x-ray your luggage and stuff. Gotta buy some good luggage, some casual designer clothes, that sort of thing. Look the part of somebody who can fly private from Atlanta to Paris. I'll start in Paris, then we'll see. Rich young Frenchman, rich family. You're going to be Paris French, to put on the snob, Louis Vuitton luggage, and you buy Italian shoes, sunglasses. I got it. You let me know when you get there. I'm going to worry about you. Don't, I'll be fine. Let Mags know, okay? Tell her I'll call her on the new phone in a few days. I'll be fine. He said again. I always wanted to go to Europe. It might as well be now. He pushed up, went to his pack for the phone. My number is in there, and so's the number for the one I'll send Mags. I'm going to get started. Thanks for the food. You don't thank me for that. We're family. He took Booth by the shoulders. You come here any time, you hear? And when you feel it's safe for you, I'll come to you. Me. Max and I will come to you. Sebastian hugged him, slapped his back. I have 3 pretty girls, and I have 1 handsome boy. Why don't you stay tonight? Get more sleep. Better to drive at night. He'd figured I'd come here, so it's better to keep moving. Tell Dauphine. Tell her I'm sorry. I couldn't see her. On December 30, Henry Metairie boarded a private jet in Atlanta. He had sun-streaked light brown hair worn in shaggy waves. He had a hip-length bronze leather jacket over a navy cashmere turtleneck, Armani sunglasses, though the sun had already started to set, and smug black jeans. His Piaget watch, a knockoff, but it would pass, had a black leather band. He spoke little, and then in perfect English, with a chipped Parisian accent. The flight attendant assigned to tend to him told the pilot he seemed bored and snooty. That would have pleased him. He landed in Paris on a misty winter morning and slid through customs as the rich and privileged do. His passport had the numerous stamps of the frequent and international traveler. Here it received its first legal one. Bienvenue, Monsieur Metairie. He gave the custom agent the slightest nod, merci, and with everything he cared about behind him, he walked through the airport and into the world. He spent most of his 20s in Europe, exploring, working, even hiking and biking. In France, he focused on what Sebastian called bubbles and shifted from a flat in Paris to a cottage in Provence to a castle hotel in the Loire Valley. He took cooking lessons from a student at Le Cordon Bleu and shared her bed after learning how to prepare the perfect macaroon. In Italy, it was art to admire and to steal as he basked in the glory of the light in Florence, the magic of the canals in Venice, the antiques of Rome. He traveled to Greece and learned the language, to England and Ireland, to Sicily and Tuscany. He learned to travel through Europe as casually as he had once ridden his bike through his old Chicago neighborhood. Once a year, as Pinky Soren, he spent a few days with Mags. He'd pick a spot, a villa in Tuscany, a house in Bar Harbor. Whatever appealed, she often traveled with Sebastian, and he'd have those days to catch up on what her life had been. At 27, he was wealthy, well-traveled, spoke 10 languages, 8 of which he considered himself fluent in. He'd seen the world, or enough of it, and aside from those few days every year, he was alone. He sat on the terrace of a pretty villa on the coast of Italy and sipped wine, looked out on the Med and the boats gliding over it. Mags sat beside him. She'd come alone, as Bluetooth had the previous winter, gone to the big doghouse in the sky. Sebastian had a new puppy, just weaned, and hadn't been willing to leave him as yet. He's insane over the puppy, Mag said. I know, having Wiley helped him through the grief. Like Coyote, right? Wile E. Coyote. He would name his dog after not only cartoon character, but the bad guy. Sort of bad guy, I guess. Reaching out, she took his hand, just held it, as they sat. He told her she looked fantastic, and he hadn't had to exaggerate. She still wore her hair long and wild, and now flame red with generous streaks of glinting gold. I have some news, she began. Good news or bad news? I think very good for me. I'm moving. Again? She'd left Santa Fe when he'd left the U.S. and tried on Sedona. Again, I'm moving to New Orleans. That got his attention, and he shifted to her. You're not moving into the cottage with Sebastian. I know the two of you. I know about that. And I love the man sincerely. But it's to buy you, and it's... Sebastian and I both like having our own space. Between my business and the fact you keep throwing money at me, you're my family. And you're mine, pal. Anyway, I'm buying my own place, not renting this go round. It's time to have my own. Dauphine and her man helped me find one, and since luck's handy, he's going to help me fix it up my way. It's a nice little place, and I'm going to have a magical shop street level. It's just big enough for you to come visit, come stay. I know you haven't been back to New Orleans in years, so maybe it's time, or will be soon. Maybe. And some more news? Dauphine expecting. Expecting what? Mags let out a laugh that turned into a hoot, then hiccuping gasps as she pressed a hand to her ribs. A baby, you dumbass. A what? Really? Holy crap. Is she happy? Is it good? Is she good? She's ecstatic and very good. So good, Luke's finally convinced her to marry him next month. She hopes you'll come, understands if you can't. Boats glided by on the sea, the wide, blue sea. I wish I could, I really do. It's just the sort of thing he'd look for. Oh, honey, that scumbag can't still be looking for you. I swear to you, nobody's bothered me, I'd tell you. I know you would, but this type doesn't hear no. Or when he does, he has to make you pay for it. And he got a whiff of me in Prague last fall. I got tipped off, but he still got feeders out. He didn't say anything. It was a whiff, and that's all he got. He kissed the hand that held his. Tell Dauphine I wish her the best of everything. With the baby, with Luke, and I'll come back. I will soon. Things are getting a little warm here anyway. You don't mean the weather. They've given me a name, the people who look for people like me. The chameleon. I like it, he admitted. But when they figure out your style enough to name you, it's getting warm. You could stop. He made a non-committal sound. I was thinking about checking out Rio, getting a look at South America, the Amazon, maybe a year or two there, or maybe in the States, thinking anyway, or Australia, New Zealand, a nice vacation maybe. I think you got those itchy feet from me. He looked at her, his crazy Aunt Max, his family, his constant. No one knew him the way she did. No one else remembered the boy he'd been, his mother, their life. Let's take our itchy feet and walk down to the village. You haven't had a chance to do any shopping yet. You know me. But she gave the hand she still held another squeeze. Would have thought we'd ever sit here like this in a villa in Sorrento, with the meadow spread all out just for us. The world's an oyster, Max. You just have to pry it open and take the pearl. A few weeks into Rio, netted rubies before he headed to Peru for emeralds and a cruise on the Amazon. He settled a score in Peru and found a way to see one of the port's less refined and more brutal tools ended up in a cage. It felt good. It felt just. And it sent him away from South America to the South Pacific. 3 months in Australia brought him opals and an interesting little Surrey monochrome. He dove the Great Barrier Reef. New Zealand was for kayaking and hiking, and the always reliable stamps. He had a week with Mags and Sebastian on Fiji. 9 years after he landed in Paris for the first time, he returned. Willem Dauphine, an art broker currently based in London. This time he stayed in the art nouveau splendor of the peninsula in the heart of the city. A conservative man, Willem wore perfectly tailored suits, usually with an Hermes tie and pocket square. He kept his dark blonde hair short and brushed back, favored tortoiseshell glasses and clean, close shaves. He had a small car along with his right jawline and a pronounced overbite. He also had a small furnished flat in another part of the city that served as his workspace. He visited museums and galleries, but his target was the Musée National Moderne and an exquisite Matisse still life. There he made an appointment with the assistant director, a fashionable middle-aged woman in a severe black suit who offered him coffee. Though he found it strong enough to melt the enamel on his teeth, he took it black. They held their conversation in fluid, informal French. Thank you, Madame Droussant, for meeting with me. I know your time is valuable, as all my time is. Of course, I represent a client who has inherited a collection of art. A private collection, you understand. I have persuaded, or begun to persuade, this client to share his collection with the world. And who is this client? I'm not yet at liberty to say, but only to divulge that the collection, while small, contains what I consider important pieces of Fauvism, 6 pieces in total, which have been in this private collection for 2 generations. I am unaware of such a collection. As you would be, madame. It is kept in a private room in a private home, and this, I believe, is not the purpose of art, and so I urge my client to bring out what has been closed away. I was assigned, so to speak, to have a conversation here, as in London, in Rome, in New York, and to take back to my client small details which might persuade a permanent loan of the collection. You wish for us to display this collection, but can tell me nothing of it or your client? I wish to persuade my client. This is the first obstacle. I will be frank. She waved a hand. Please. My client has no true interest in art. I wish to pull her away from selling the paintings, going to auctions, where they may, again, be held privately. My client has no need to profit from them, you see. I don't speak to my clients of the purpose of art, but of the prestige of a plaque in a great museum, a plaque bearing her name as donor, the publicity generated from such a gift, and so on. And with this, my client is persuaded enough to allow me to test the waters. I see. I live and work in London, madame, but I am a Frenchman. If I could choose, the collection would come here. Still, my priority is to see these works are given to the world. There are others whose priority is the selling of them, or the keeping of them as they are now. I want to take her some assurances on the benefits to her of this donation. You wish to put conditions on a gift? I am aware of a policy which seeks some assurance that if this collection is found worthy, it will be displayed with a plaque. He closed his eyes briefly. There must be a plaque and some pomp surrounding this gift. As if struggling with stress, he rubbed the back of his neck. I am not at liberty to divulge, but I am sure, madame, you're aware of the exhibition in the Salon d'Automne in 1905. Its controversies. Van Dodgen participated, did he not? Interest flickered into her eyes. He did. With Matisse, Marquette, and others. It is then, yes. These artists, with their bold use of colors, were termed fauves, the wild beasts of art. Van Dongen, we know, moved to Montmartre, was friendly with Picasso, and became a favorite of French society with his portraits. You might find it interesting that the grandmother of my client also lived in Montmartre. A strikingly beautiful woman in her day. He paused dramatically. I have seen her portrait. Ah. If I can assure you this collection contains works of this importance, I wonder if you can assure me, my client, in turn, how they would be received. All, for now, hypothetical. It earned him a VIP tour, and because of the major art theft in May of 2010, assurances regarding security, he went straight to the flat to work. After checking out of the hotel the next day, he flew to Rome, where he repeated the scenario at the Galleria Nazionale. There he let it be known he'd been called back to London by the client. He flew to London, then erased the Dauphine, became Jacques Picotte, and drove in his newly purchased Mini back to the flat in Paris. There, with a scruffy beard, long dark hair, John Lennon glasses, a silver stud in his left ear, and a prominent nose, he worked 2 full weeks on plans for the heist. And there he learned that Laporte had gotten more than a whiff. Later, he'd imagined what might have happened if he hadn't decided to take a walk on a pretty autumn afternoon in Paris, hadn't decided to indulge in a pastry and wandered by the George with it. If he hadn't seen Laporte sliding out of a limo and, flanked by the bodyguard, greeted by the hotel manager, walking into the Grand Hotel. The hotel within walking distance of the museum, within walking distance of his flat. To check in only days before he'd planned to steal the Matisse. The world could be a small place, but not that small. He didn't run, but kept right on strolling, and cursed himself for returning to Paris, to Europe. He should have crossed it off the list, and now he would. In the flat, he broke down his equipment, packed, and wiped down every surface. To tie off loose ends, he contacted the landlord and tearfully told him his grandmother in Nice had died suddenly and unexpectedly. As he drove out of Paris, he thought of the weeks of work, the planning, the travel, the damn Matisse, all gone for nothing because one man had decided to own him. He'd have dropped some crumbs somewhere, he thought, just enough somewhere for whoever Laporte had on his ass to follow. And but for a pain or chocolate, he'd very likely have been cornered again. He didn't go back to London or drive to Nice, but made his way to Calais, where he sold a Mini for peanuts, boarded a train, another look, another name, to Belgium. He traveled from Belgium into Germany, shedding personas like skin until he was certain he didn't feel any breath on the back of his neck. He arrived in New York a few days before Christmas and lost himself in the city for most of a cold, lonely winter. On Fat Tuesday, Max danced in the street with Sebastian. Traditions deserve respect, after all. The evening was young, but Dauphine and Luke had a toddler to get home to, and Mardi Gras ran all day. They could have danced on the balcony of her pretty house and seen most of the action, thrown their beads to those reveling below, but not on the Fat Tuesday. She and Dauphine had pulled in constant business that week in the Crystal Ball, the gift shop and psychic reading room. They ran in the rooms below that balcony. Life, Max thought, as the music blared and the bees flew, was almost perfect. It would have rung the bell unperfect if she heard from Harry Booth, Silas, whatever name he carried now. But he'd warned her communication would have to be spotty for a while longer. She always carried the phone just in case, but it hadn't rung or vibrated in almost more than 6 weeks, so she carried the nagging worry along with it. Then it did. It vibrated in her pocket as trumpets bared. She yanked it out, had to remind herself not to use names yet, in case she just said hello. Hi, Mags. Happy Mardi Gras. Oh, pal, it's so good to hear your voice. She gripped Sebastian's hand as she spoke, and the look she sent Dauphine, just a little teary, said it all. Yours too. Can you tell me where you are? I'm standing on the balcony of your place. You guys look great. Oh my gosh, you're here. He's there. She looked up, over, saw him. We're coming. We're coming right now. She scooped up wildly, kept her hand clamped on Sebastian. He's not going anywhere, Sebastian told her. We're just walking on home now. He lifted her hand to kiss it. Just strolling on home. She slowed, though she knew he'd never have come if he wasn't sure it was safe. Delphine unlocked the door to the shop, then Max did run. She pushed the dog into Sebastian's hand, dashed towards the door to the residence already open, where he waited for her. He met her halfway. Here you are! Her arms flew around him. Finally, here you are. Missed you, he murmured against her wild, wonderful hair. And you, he added, looking at Sebastian over her head. You sure pick ugly dogs. Got character, this one. You'd have to make up for that face. His gaze shifted to Delphine's, just held there before he looked at Luke, maybe an inch or two shorter than he was, but broader in the shoulders. He wore his hair in short twists and had, in Booth's opinion, a world of patience in his eyes. Luke, nice to meet you finally. Please don't push me. He released Max to pull Delphine in, kissed her, glanced down at the small but visible baby belly. Both of you. I'm sorry I couldn't make the wedding or meet Giselle. She rubbed a hand on his stubble, ran it through the thick hair that fell over his collar. You'll meet her now. I've seen the pictures and videos. She's got your eyes. And attitude. Attitude for sure, Luke confirmed. She stepped back, shook her head. Still got that pretty face. I'm glad to see it in person again. Let's go. Let's all go up, sit down, have a drink, catch up. Mags swiped at her eyes. When did you get in? She asked as they started up the stairs. A couple of days ago. Couple of days? I wanted to be sure. I'm sure. I like your place. Your shop too. Good security. Not good enough. Booth grinned at Sebastian. For most, it is. You'll stay here. He nodded at Mags. I'd like to for a while. You fix this place up, he said to Luke. You do good work. Only kind worth doing. They walked into Mag's colorful living room, with its forest of pillows, its rain of crystals. Outside the French doors, Mardi Gras rocked. Wiley shed off the leash, pranced over to snuggle into a throne of a dog bed. He grinned at Booth. This one likes me. He doesn't look as if he'd like to explode my brain with the power of his. I'm going to open that champagne you've been saving. And I give you this much. Sebastian held the two fingers close together toward Delphine, and the rest orange juice. Delphine patted her belly. He can handle that. A boy. She smiled at Booth, so the cards say. She snuggled into an oversized bright red chair with Luke in a way that told Booth that was their usual spot here. They looked good together, he thought, right together. He thought the same when he'd seen wedding pictures and family pictures, but seeing them now locked that down. He heard the distinctive pop from the kitchen and Sebastian's whoo. Can you just stay? Mags asked. Just settle in and stay? New Orleans works for you. It always did, but he's too close here, and he's got too long a reach. Curse myself. Sebastian brought in the bottle, glasses, a jug of juices on a tray. Curse every damn day I ever brought you in on that job. Fate's fate. If it hadn't been that, it would have been something else. It's on him, not you. All of it's on him. What are you going to do? Max took Booth's hand again. Where will you go if you go back to Europe? Not there, not for a few years anyway, if ever. I've got some ideas, some plans, a couple of places in mind. He sent her a reassuring smile. It's time for that sabbatical. I'll absolutely drink to that. She passed him a glass after Sebastian poured, waited until everyone had one. To a nice, long, happy sabbatical. Though at the moment he didn't count on happy, he drank. 2 out of 3 wasn't bad. He'd driven from New York to New Orleans in a new Volvo, bought nearly as much for sentiment as efficiency. Leading with sentiment, he revisited the Smokies and the Otter Bounce, and they'd struck him with the same wonder as the first one. Though he didn't precisely retrace the routine he'd taken at 18, he used the back roads more than highways, stopped at motels and diners where cash payment didn't raise an eyebrow. Though it still warmed him, still welcomed him, he understood New Orleans wasn't his place anymore. It was and always would be a respite, a place to connect with family and friends and maybe his younger, more innocent self. He experienced a sensation of being apart and separate when he saw the obvious connection and affection between Mags and Sebastian. They shared nearly a decade of history he had only pieces of, and seeing Dauphine with her sassy little girl, with another kid cooking, brought on with those same sensations. He hadn't been a part of their daily lives for too long to slide seamlessly back into them. Maybe that could change if he had time, but Laporte's headquarters in Lake Charles came too close for anything approaching comfort. To protect the people he cared about, he had to create more distance. To create distance meant recreating himself again, his past, his present, and for a while, his future. The teacher, Max said as they sat on the balcony in the cool February sunlight. I've used it before, and I can handle high school level English and the theater courses. I don't doubt that one. Is it going to be enough for you? Don't know, but I've got 2 potentials. A private high school outside Atlanta and a public one in Virginia, under 2 hours from D.C. Georgia's closer to Louisiana. Yeah, there's that. Maybe too close, and that factored in. Anyway, I've applied for the position, done a few online and phone interviews. Next up is in person. My persona is a Sebastian. I'm spelling it the usual way, Sebastian Xavier Booth, originally from Chicago. Double majored in English, Lit, and Education with a minor in theater. At Northwestern, I did really well. I bet you did. He stretched out his legs. Got my master's in both, down here at Tulane, where my aunt lives. Struck it out to get one in theater. Toured Europe between times and after. Trust fund, you know. Oh yeah, she snickered. We Booths are totally trust funders. Did you ever actually teach? Sure, New York. I considered it a fallback while I tried to break in on Broadway in acting, then discovered it was my true path. But New York wasn't my place. I'm looking for a quieter life, and one where I can connect, have more impact with students. She reached over to rub his arm. Are you, pal? Yeah, that quieter life sounds good right now. I'll find out about the teaching part. I liked tutoring, but this will be a long way from that one-on-one sort of deal. The main thing is disappearing. I don't see Laporte or anyone sniffing for the chameleon looking at a high school teacher in some small to mid-sized town. And what about your night work? We'll see about that. I know how to be careful and to keep things outside my own nests. Plus, sabbatical, add a quieter life, lesson plans, and putting on shows, and all that hinges on me scoring the gig. I know you, pal. You'll get the job if you want it. How the hell are you going to pass the audition? You're going to check all this. Computers, technology. He wiggled his fingers. Magic. I'm leaving you another phone, and I'm going to do some of that magic to your computer. You can expect a contact from both schools. You'll be Dr. Sylvia Fine, the headmistress of the Robin Hood Academy, New York. We'll go over all that, but you know the drill. Sebastian's going to handle any inquiries to Tulane, and I'll take care of Northwestern myself. I don't see them going too deep. They'll have my transcripts, letters of recommendation, but we'll cover it. Any regrets that you need to cover it? No. He shook his head, shrugged, stretched out his yard of leg. No point in them. I did what I had to. Then I got to like it. Hell, Mags, I always liked it. Nodding, she sat back, looked out on the post Mardi Gras quiet of the neighborhood. Read any good books lately? Like, say, a Southern literary type thriller set in the world of academia? It pinched more than a little. Publish or Perish by Miranda Emerson. Yeah, I read it. It's good, really good. No surprise. And yeah, I recognize myself in the opportunistic prick and second victim. I deserved my untimely and brutal death. No, you didn't. The rare scolding tone made him feel 12 again. You did what you had to do. It can be both. I do regret Miranda, he admitted. I waver between regretting getting involved with her in the first place and hurting her because I did. I guess that can be both too. It hurt you too. I got through it. Water under the bridge. Over the dam, he told himself, and always tried to believe it. We were kids. Oh, my man, you had to stop being a kid before you were 10. She looked over at him. When did you leave? I've got the interview in Georgia Tuesday afternoon. Okay then, let's make the most of the time we have. They had music and food. He bonded with Luke over home repairs and fell desperately under the spell of the effervescent Giselle. He sat with Sebastian on the porch of the Bayou cottage on his last day, and Wiley napped, sprawled over Booth's left shoe. This dog's ugly, but he's got excellent taste. That old Bluto, he never tried to take a chunk out of you, so he liked you fine enough. Young Wiley here, he likes everybody. He has to grow into more discrimination. You should get yourself a dog. Can't stuff a dog in a go pack when you've got to run. You don't want to hear it, but I look back on that damn job. My bum ankle and that bloody Laporte. And he shook his head, sighed as the river flowed by. You did that job, so slick, just a boy. That's the truth, and so slick. Born with that talent, and how you're supposed to not use what comes to you when you're born. The job wasn't the problem. Doing it too well turned out to be. That damn Laporte, that damn painting. Beautiful work. I can still see it in my head, still feel that wonder and admiration. One day I'm going to steal that and the statue back. You stay clear of that pig of a man. Oh, I will. But one day he's going to come home to that palace of his and find those gone, and you'll know I bested him. He stole one possible future from me. I'll take what he loves most, possessions. Sebastian stayed silent, watched the river. Then he nodded again. If you need help with this, with something else, you call in Sebastian. I'm there for you, me. I know you are. You're looking out for Mags, and that covers a lot of ground for me. I love that woman. Love her so sometimes my heart, it's too big inside me. So I don't make her my wife, and she'll never be my fourth ex-wife. That was one way to look at it, Booth decided, a way that clearly worked for Sebastian and Max, and that's all that mattered. When he drove away from New Orleans Monday morning, he knew the people he cared for and were cared about would take care of each other. Since he intended to remain at the school that hired him for at least a year, hopefully two, he wore no disguise. He went into the interview as he now thought of himself. Sebastian Booth wore a good stone gray suit, a Hugo Boss, and carried a leather briefcase. After all, he came from money, as most of the students in the academy did. Those students wore uniforms, also gray, blazers with the school's logo in red on the breast pocket. No hair color, not in nature, was permitted, and hair for boys had to be trimmed above the collar. Only clear nail polish allowed, no visible tattoos or piercings other than earlobes. Only 2 earrings, studs only, were acceptable. He hadn't thought the rigid dress code would bother him. He liked structure, organization, and understood the school of thought that believed such deviations from the norm served as distractions to education. But it did, in fact, bother him almost as much as a self-satisfied air wafting down the halls bothered him. Even with the uniforms, he could spot the jocks, the nerds, the bullies, and the bullied. Maybe he could make a difference, which he intended to try to do whenever he landed. But though he found the campus lovely and the school's architecture interesting, he knew within 10 minutes of the interview he didn't want to land there. Of course, he'd take it and adjust if the one in Virginia didn't work out, but he'd take it with an eye to moving on as soon as possible. He'd planned to stay the night in the area, drive around, walk around, get a feel for the community. Instead, he drove north and arrived 2 days early in the interesting town of West Bend, so named. He'd read, as it spread on a western bend of a northern sliver of the Rappahannock. It had charm, with its well-presented main street and the downtown Old Town section, and its small harbor, with its view of water, forests, mountains, even charm. Enough charm, he knew, to draw some tourists, hikers, some kayakers and day sailors. It missed being a big draw by a matter of miles. Tappahannock to the south grabbed that bag. As did the water towns along Chesapeake and the higher-end waterfront of the Potomac. But he liked the feel of it, big enough he could blend, but not so big he'd feel swallowed up. And should he have to leave abruptly, he could wind his way to 95 and get gone. He drove past the high school. West Bend only had one, which might be a small problem, but not insurmountable. It didn't have the grace and dignity of the private school in Georgia, but he liked the solidity of the red brick and the sprawl of it, the nice grove trees and the soft rolled grass. He noted the track, the football stadium, and home of the regional champs, the West Bend Catfish. He scanned the parking lots, both students and teachers, and would and wound through campus to drive by the smaller middle school, the elementary. It all felt normal, he decided. He circled back to Main Street part. He'd walked around, he thought, get that feel. Maybe get a burger, a gift shop, a bookstore, and damn if they didn't have Miranda's book in the front window. Not all by itself, but there it sat. He couldn't see the photo on the back, but he'd already studied every inch of it. That gorgeous fall of hair, left loose for the head and shoulders shot, those sea-witch eyes staring straight out, the wide mouth curved in just the slightest hint of a smile. He went in because he couldn't resist a bookstore, and liked knowing he'd have one right on Main Street if he landed. He bought another thriller. He already had hers, with plans to start it in his hotel room that evening. The very friendly bookseller recommended the Main Street Grill for the burger just a block down. He started down the block, then stopped at West Bend Real Estate. He'd planned, again, should he land, to rent at least for a month or two, then consider buying if he found he'd stick for those 2 years. But he hadn't counted on the house in the photo displayed in the window. A good-sized house, not huge, but certainly bigger than he needed. Not in town, so not walkable to school, and that had been on his list, and with over an acre of land, more than he'd planned on. Lists and plans went out the window, and he went in the door. A woman, the only current occupant, swiveled away from her computer and beamed a smile at him. "Afternoon. Anything I can do for you?" He pegged her at about his age, a curvaceous, in a red sweater and with a blunt swig of dark honey hair framing a pretty face. The house and Waterside Drive in the window caught my eye. Terrific property, and it just came on the market this week. 4 bedrooms, with one on the main floor that would serve as a home, office, or study. Master with an ensuite that was recently modeled. Another full bath on the second floor, a roomy half bath on the main. A bonus outside shower. Original hardwood floors throughout, and in good shape. The kitchen's the centerpiece of the house, in my opinion. She gave him that smile again. Do you or anyone in your family cook? It's just me, and I do. But too big for him, he thought. He didn't need all that space. You'll love it. Double-wall ovens, under-the-counter microwave and ice maker, a little butler's pantry with sink and wine fridge. Well, you should just see it instead of me sitting here talking it up. How's now? Sure, if that works for you. Just me here today. My partner's out of the office. I'll just put the sign on the door and drive you out to see it. I'd like to take a look, but I don't want to waste your time. I'm here for a job interview, and if I don't get, well, welcome to West Bend. She rose, swung on a jacket. Tracy Newman. She struck out a hand. Sebastian Booth. Welcome, Sebastian, and good luck with the job. Showing a house is never a waste of time. My car's right out back. She gestured, started to lead the way. What kind of job? Teaching, the high school. The new English teacher, and theater. Maybe, he thought, the town was too small after all. Right, my uncle's assistant principal, so I heard they were looking for someone. She led him out the back to a 4-car lot and her compact SUV. There's some wiggle room on the list price. There always is, but it's fairly steep on a teacher's salary. I have other sources of income, family money, he added, after what he deemed came off as intended, as he slightly embarrassed hesitation. Good for you, because it's a sweet property. Coincidentally, Miss Hubbard, the house belongs to Gail and Robert Hubbard, is who you'll be replacing when, not if, you get the job. I believe in positive thinking. She pulled out of the lot, took a side street. She decided to retire and they're moving to Kentucky to be closer to their daughter and grandkids. Her daughter married a horse trainer down there. Anyway, they've had subs in her classes since after winter break. She shot him a glance. I'm going to give you an edge. If you can start pretty much now, they'd lean in your direction. I thought it was August. I'm giving you an edge. I take it you don't mind being a little out of town. Not at all. It's on the water. Great views of the river, the hills, the woods. There's a small dock out back. The house faces the road. The river runs behind it. Mr. Hubbard's a keen gardener, so it's got nice curb appeal. Are you in the market for a boat? Maybe a kayak. I like to kayak. Rick's Water Sports, the north end of Maine. We believe in shopping local. Okay. So where are you from, Sebastian? From Chicago originally, but I've been teaching at a private school in New York. I wanted to change. A private school in New York? To West Bend High? She laughed. I'd call that a change. She turned down a gravel road that cut through the woods and opened up to the house. 2 stories, a stone base topped by silvered cedar. It wasn't a box, not with the jut to the south, probably in addition. A covered front porch, and he knew from the photo, a deck on the second floor in the back. A lot of windows, he noted, so a lot of light. It looked sturdy and simple, warm and cared for, with a lawn he could mow and shrubs and ornamental trees he'd have to figure out. He thought, crap, it's perfect. Maybe Tracy caught his vibe, because she beamed at him again. Let me be the first to welcome you home, Sebastian. She got out, gestured toward the house. You can see the property's been well maintained. The interior, you'll soon see. Mrs. Hubbard liked strong colors. Could use a little buffing up here and there. And you may want to tone down some of those strong colors. They walked up the 3 steps to the porch. The roof's only got 5 years on it. This porch needs a swing. They took theirs with them. Mrs. Hubbard and their oldest son built it, so sentimental. She punched a code into the lockbox, which she noted, and filed away out of habit to retrieve the keys. No alarm system? No, and they lived here 36 years without incident. But if you're in the market, I can make some recommendations. She turned the key, standard lock set. Mission style, in matte black, no deadbolt. The door opened into a living room, great room area, with fireplace and a slight line back to the kitchen, which told him they'd likely taken down some walls in the last decade. He'd been right about the light. It just streamed in, and she hadn't lied about the strong colors. Mrs. Hubbard had gone with what he decided was something like terracotta, and it had impact where the turquoise of the built-ins that flanked the fireplace. A bold choice, Tracy commented. Brave, reminds me of my aunt. In a good way or a bad way? There's no bad way with my aunt. That's so sweet. So, you can see the floors are in great shape, and they run throughout. Mr. Hubbard's a contractor, and they remodeled over the years. It's good work. I can see that. He let her ramble, half bath, main floor bedroom, or home office, fully modernized kitchen, where the bold and brave Mrs. Hubbard had gone with a softer blue, and the cabinetry and lots of glass fronts. A white granite island, a farm sink, and a backsplash that married the blue and terracottas in a pattern that reminded him of Italy. But what he really saw, was a view through the double glass doors to a slate patio, and beyond, he saw the river and its lazy run. Laundry slash mudroom here, and dining area. I tried to talk them into letting me stage it, but they waved that one off. She opened those glass doors, walked him out and around, talking about the grounds, the gardens, the little dock. He heard her data on the furnace, the water heater, and so on, but he knew he'd been sold in the minute he'd seen the photo in the window. The job remained the sticking point. He asked the right questions, the questions a man who didn't already imagine himself looking at those views for the next year or two of his life would ask, and toured the second floor. He lighted the master, with its atrium doors leading onto the deck, and its more than generous walk-in closet offered potential for a private workspace. He'd have to live with the choice of lavender walls a while, but holy crap, he had a bedroom fireplace, small, gas burning, with a chunky wood shelf over its mantel. If and when he deemed it safe for Max to visit, he had a guest room for her and Sebastian, and yet another bedroom with a walk-in closet. Not as generous as the master, but enough to alter his vague plans. The whole place could work for him. No basement and a carpet. No basement and a carport rather than a garage. But an attic space, another possibility. Want to toss out an office? Tracy asked him. I have to get one first. If I do, yeah. It's what I'm looking for. You ready for the interview? I'm ready enough. It's the day after tomorrow. How about you? Sorry? Uncle Joe, assistant principal. And I'm in a book club with Lorna, Principal Lorna Downey. Why don't I make a call, then drive you over there? I'm not really dressed for a job interview. Around here you are. Just give me a second. She took out her phone and wandered outside. He heard her say, Hi Lorna, it's Tracy. Guess who's taking a look at the Hubbard place? He'd planned to get a burger, drive around the area. He tried to avoid impulse because it often led to mistakes, and a mistake often led to 5 to 10 in a state-run facility, but Tracy strolled back in, closing and locking the doors behind her. Principal Downey would be delighted to meet with you now. Well, wow, thanks, I think. Tell you what, if you get the job, you buy me dinner. If you get the job and buy the house, I buy you dinner. He looked back at her, the pretty face, the take-charge attitude. Sounds like a win for me. He felt the town suited his needs for a temporary respite. He felt the house more than suited his needs for privacy and ambiance. The school, when he walked in, checked off the box. The kids looked like little kids, ripped jeans, slouchy hoodies, jerseys, the occasional short skirt, plenty of hair with colors not found in nature. As he walked in during the change classes, the hallways filled with noise, voices, slamming lockers, pinging phones. He noted the trophy case and the awards in it: football, soccer, softball, track, lacrosse, cross-country, basketball. Sports, and more sports. He spotted one for chorus, all country, and another for the debate team, regional champs. But sports dominated, and football dominated sports.